Welcome to Soul Yoga Online. We hope you enjoy your virtual experience.
As we get ready to move into our yin practice today, we won't necessarily need too many props, but if you would like to have either a bolster or a pillow, a blanket, or even a towel can work, and always the option for a block or two. So making sure you have those things before starting if you would like to have them. But as you're ready, we'll begin to move onto our backs. And taking a few breaths here just to find sort of a comfortable position. The feet can be planted knees towards the ceiling. You can have them extended long, whatever feels good here. As we take a few breaths, gently allowing the breath to sink deep into the belly. And with the next inhale, inflating the belly like a balloon. Exhale, releasing the belly button back towards the spine. Inhale to inflate the belly. Exhale to release back in. And as we come into this breath, we can begin to allow our shoulders to soften towards the mat, the eyes to soften behind lowered or closed eyelids, allowing there to be some gentleness in the jaw, perhaps creating space between the teeth. A gentle swallow in the throat to relax the neck muscles. Allowing your body to begin to soften and release into the mat fully. As we gently begin to shift into our first pose, we will draw the hands out to the sides, drawing the fingertips to the ears, allowing the elbows to open wide as we're reclined on our mat. The elbows soften towards the floor, the shoulders soften towards the mat. And as we settle in here with our arms in this position, taking a few moments, if you'd like to interlace the fingers behind the head, that's another option to consider as well. But just finding that shape that allows the elbows to soften. No stress in the shoulders or chest. As we settle into our upper body, we can consider choices for the legs. We can consider to either have the legs long on the mat, one option to consider, and just notice how that feels throughout your lower back, into the shoulders, the neck. A softer option may be to plant the feet with knees towards the ceiling, softens that sway in the lower back, that hollow between the spine and the mat. to take it into a more intense back bend. If you would like a little bit more, and to come in through the front of the hips, and keep the feet together and allow the knees to fall out to the side. The soles of the feet turning towards each other as the knees soften. You'll find your back bend grow as the lower spine leaves the mat just a little bit more. Settling ourselves into this shape. Come back to the breath in the belly. That deep inhale, that fully released exhale. If this is intense on the legs, if you like having the knees wide, but it's a little intense in the hips, you can always consider blocks or a rolled up blanket, pillow, underneath the knees. Allowing yourself to find little movements, little refinements that help soften the body into this shape. And you may find the longer that we hold into this pose, that it will begin to shift in the body. Perhaps the knees sink a little bit lower. Perhaps you need to adjust the legs into a different shape, and that's always an option. Notice any tension in the face, allowing the forehead, the eyebrows to soften. Perhaps finding movement with the eyes, perhaps closing the eyes tightly and releasing the eyebrows up towards the hairline. Coming into the jaw, that softening of the jaw, the space between the teeth. Notice the tongue. And as you settle here, and you soften here, keep returning the attention to the breath. As we settle into about 30 more seconds in this held posture, allowing any adjustments, movements within the shape. It should never be sharp, should never be electric. A nice pull, but never sharp. If it's sharp, always consider changing your shape. Drawing in a full inhale, releasing the complete exhale. The next inhale will draw the knees up towards the ceiling. The feet will plant. And then very slowly we'll release the arms back down alongside the body. Taking a few breaths here at the release of this posture. Feeling free to find movements in the hips, maybe the neck. As you explore these movements, eventually allowing the knees to come into the chest. Taking a few breaths there, releasing the lower back towards the mat. And as you're ready, we'll allow this little ball shape that we've created to begin to rock forward and back until the momentum brings us up to a seated position, allowing the soles of the feet to come together, the knees wide. Rooting into the sits bones, finding our tall seat to start. Drawing in a full inhale. Exhale, begin releasing yourself forward. And if you need to adjust the legs, either taking them further away from the hips or drawing them closer to the body, feeling free to adjust that shape and rounding forward. If you find that this pull is intense, feeling free to bring a block or a pillow underneath one knee or both. But as we fold and we find this rounding of the spine, the opening of the back of the neck as the crown of the head begins to point towards the floor ahead of the mat. The arms just coming into a supportive shape. Perhaps the elbows come down. Perhaps you're a little bit higher in your fold. And then allowing the breath to continue to be full, even though we're compressed here in the front. We want to continue that breath and continue bringing it into the belly. Perhaps each exhale begins to allow you to soften into the pose. Allowing the breath to continue to be full, to soften the body forward. Adjusting the legs if you need. Always available are props. But then noticing, starting at the tailbone, going along the spine from bottom all the way through the back of the neck. Begin to notice where you feel the pull, where you feel the sensation in the back. If you feel it more intense in the hips, that's okay, but bringing that awareness to perhaps it's the lower back, the upper back, even just noticing the neck. Continuing the breath. Each exhale, softening not only the body and the shape, but allowing the face to soften, the mind to soften. In these longer holds, we tend to have our mind begin to wander. And when you notice that your mind begins to drift, come back to your body. Come back to the awareness of the spine, the hips, and where you feel the pull. Noticing the sensation and naming the sensation as the awareness builds in the body. Continuing to allow the neck to remain long. Then drawing in a full inhale. Releasing the complete exhale. We'll gently begin to walk the hands back towards the body, lifting back into our tall seat. And as we lift and release this pose, if there's any movement that help release this forward fold, feeling free to take them, to find them. Perhaps some circles with the torso, smoothing out the back bend and the rounding. You need to adjust the legs if drawing them in towards each other would feel good, or extending them long. Feeling free to find and explore movements that assist in the release of each of these postures. Yin, allowing for that time between poses to build the awareness of how they impact the body and the mind. As you're ready, taking a moment to notice where you are on your mat. We're going to come back down to a reclined position in our broken wing posture. But as we come down, you want to make sure that you have enough mat behind you so that you don't sort of come off the mat and maybe knock your head directly on the floor. With the feet planted, I'm going to start with my right hand. We'll be doing both sides, so you can feel free to start with whichever side feels most comfortable, but I'll be starting with the right. Taking the right hand, we'll draw the hand behind the back of the hand towards the back body, the palm facing away. And as we take a moment in this shape, allowing the hand, the more it's towards the tailbone, you'll find that it's softer in the shoulder. The more you draw the hand between the shoulder blades, the more intense it will be. And you know your shoulder. If you have any injuries or if there's any contraindications for you, be very mindful with how intense you allow this shape to be. But before we lay down, let's find about our 50 to 70% of the pose where you feel it, but it's not intense, because when we come to recline onto the hand, it will build intensity. So as you're ready at your 70%, the left hand, the hand that's not behind the back, will help guide you down on to the hand. Sort of capturing it underneath the back body. And the hand is usually underneath the spine. And if that is too intense or your shoulder is too intense, you can press into that right foot, sort of lifting the right hip so the right hand can adjust either closer to the tailbone. You can even make it a little more intense. If you don't like the hand directly underneath the spine, if that causes issue, you can draw the hand out sort of to the side of the spine, so it's underneath the muscles as opposed to pressing into bone. But as we settle here, just taking a few moments, knowing that you can press into that right foot to roll onto the left hip, lifting the right to adjust the hand. Take these first few moments here in this pose to notice and make the adjustments as they come up. You may find the longer we hold our poses, you can begin to come deeper into the pose. Perhaps not, but sometimes. If you find that this is just too intense or you have an injury, the arm can actually not be behind the back. It can come to the side. You can also bring a block underneath the elbow or the hand. Just have your arm in this shape, but to make it a little bit softer on the joint. If you change the legs, bringing them back to planting the feet with the knees towards the ceiling. keeping that right foot planted the same side as the broken wing. We're going to allow the left knee, the opposite knee, to fall out to the left side. The left foot will come behind the right foot, just anchoring the foot there, to allow that left leg to fall out to the side, creating almost a figure eight between the elbow and the knee. If this is too intense for that left hip, if this external rotation is not for you, or it's become a little bit more tender with previous poses, the foot can always stay planted. You do not need to add that leg portion in. But if it feels good, allowing yourself to settle in here. Once again, building the awareness of the body, checking in with the shoulder and the hip joints, checking in with the hand, making any adjustments you need, either to build deeper into the pose or to release softer into the pose. As the arm and leg begin to settle, option to allow your chin to fall the opposite direction of the broken wing. Allowing the opening of the side of the neck, gentle twist for the cervical spine. And as we settle into this shape, with the jaw soft, space between the teeth, if there's movement in that lower jaw, perhaps side to side or opening and closing the mouth, if that affects the muscles of the neck in a way that feels really good, consider. Continuing to soften here. Notice if you're building tension anywhere in the body, whether it's in the shoulder blades or the right hip, even that right foot. Enjoying the stillness. The left hand can really be anywhere that feels comfortable, either on the body, out to the side. Once again, you may feel gentle pulls, and perhaps you feel nothing at all. It could be a little bit more subtle. But if we do feel that pull, that's lovely. But if it does become sharp, electric, if it becomes difficult to take your normal breaths, you find yourself holding the breath within the pose, you may want to consider making adjustments to suit your body in this shape. Drawing in about 3 more nice, full, deep breaths in this shape. After your next exhale, the following inhale will draw the chin back center if it fell away from the broken wing. And then taking this pose apart piece by piece to come back to neutral. We'll begin with the leg and draw the left foot from behind the right and plant the left once again. Pressing into that right foot, we'll begin to lift the right hip so that the right hand can come out from underneath the back body, and allow the hand to rest alongside the hip next to the body. Taking a moment in stillness to explore and build that awareness once again into the sensations that flood into the arm upon the release of this posture. You may notice that it's hot, perhaps cold, perhaps it's a little achy. Sometimes we can experience the hand falling asleep with it pinned underneath the back. But as these sensations begin to subside, feeling free to find gentle movements through the arm and shoulder, even the hips. And as these movements feel complete, feeling free to take your time as long as you need. Keeping the right foot planted, we'll lift the left foot and then cross the left knee over the right knee. The intention to keep the knees sort of tight together as opposed to the figure 4 with the ankle at the knee, bringing them closer. And if we're going to build ourselves into a twist, but if this is too intense, you can always stack the knees. You don't need to keep the cross of the knees, but you may want to explore just to see how it feels. We'll draw the arms out to the side so the arms come straight out from the shoulders. Drawing in a full inhale. Exhale, we're going to release the knees to the right. The left hip lifts, encouraging the left shoulder to stay on the mat, to soften down. Perhaps the head stays neutral, or perhaps the chin falls the opposite direction, building the twist throughout the spine. Taking the breaths here. And you can always bring a pillow or a bolster underneath the knees, underneath the right leg to support, or even a block. And if it's just too much for the lower back, if it's not a happy place for you, you can always stack the knees. So making the adjustments that help this twist in your body feel a little bit more personalized for you. Breathe. Allowing the exhales to continue to soften the body into this twist. Drawing in one more full round of breath. The next inhale, bring us back through center. Once lifted, uncrossing the knees, planting the feet, And once again, finding any movement here that would feel good. Shifting the knees side to side in a softer twist, perhaps drawing the knees into the chest, surround the spine. And as you're ready, we'll make our way back up to a seated position, back with the feet planted in front of us, the knees towards the ceiling, sits bones planted. Once again, making sure we're in the middle of the mat. If you chose any movements that caused you to move into child's pose or towards downward facing dog, anything that you would like to release, feeling free to really move. You don't have to stay in a similar shape. Taking a few breaths as we prepare to move the same poses to the other side. We'll begin by switching hands, moving to our left hand. We're going to draw that hand behind the back of the hand towards the lower back, the palm facing away. And sort of play upright with where this hand should be, whether it's closer to the tailbone to be softer and a little more gentle, or up closer to the shoulder blades, a little more intense, with the full awareness that we are not symmetrical in a lot of these poses, in a lot of these movements in our bodies in general. So releasing any judgment or expectation that the left side will match the right. Allow it to be its own side. Allowing those sensations, that exploration, to be independent of the right. And as you find where you feel good here, again, that 50 to 70% of intensity, allow the right hand to guide you down so that the back pins the left to the mat. And once again, with the feet planted, you can always press into that left foot to lift the left hip so the left hand can shift up and down the spine, finding its perfect space. The sort of balance between the pull and a little bit of release and softness. It doesn't have to be intense. It can be very subtle. Drawing the shoulder back. So feeling free to press into the foot, lifting the hip as much as you need to find that right shape. And once again, if this hand is unhappy underneath the spine, if it's too intense to have sort of the bone to the hand, you can pull the hand out sort of to the side underneath the left muscles of the back. If there's a challenge, an injury, you can always have the hand not underneath the back, but out to the side, or stacked on blocks, another option. But as you settle where you feel a nice, perhaps soft pull, some of us will like that a little more intense, but where you feel satisfied in your shape with the broken wing, begin to soften back into the breath. Notice if the upper back is holding tension with this hand behind it. The eyes soften. The right hand can come anywhere that's comfortable. And then adding the leg portion on, you can always keep your legs right here or even extend them long. That's always an option. But offering the opportunity for exploration, keeping the left foot planted, option to allow the right knee, the opposite leg from the broken wing, allowing the right knee to fall out to the right side. The right foot comes behind the left, so it's anchored in this shape. And you can always have a blanket or anything underneath this knee if you would like. If you come into this shape and it's not for you, feel free to draw the foot back to planted. But as you settle in the leg shape that works best for your body, take a few moments to begin to notice the hip joint, notice the shoulder. If you need to refine, to change, to adjust, releasing the expectation that this mirrors the other side, both in experience and shape. Come back to the breath. Come back to softness behind the eyes. Notice the toes, the fingers. All places where we begin to clench when we're not quite sure, when we're uncertain. Allowing that to release and soften into the mat. Option to allow the chin to begin to rotate, to fall towards the right shoulder, away from the broken wing. Exploring that sensation in the neck. Perhaps this side might have more tension. Perhaps it's equal to the other side. But if it feels good to have the chin rotated away from the broken wing, consider if movements through the lower jaw that we explored on the other side would feel good on this side. Perhaps the shifting of the lower jaw left and right. Perhaps big yawn type movements. And notice if you feel a lot of tension in the neck, can you notice, is it closer to the shoulder? Perhaps closer to the eardrum. Perhaps it's pretty steady all the way through. Simply noticing. And with each breath, setting the intention to soften. Allowing the mind to soften along with the jaw, along with the body. You notice the eyebrows creating different shapes with the thoughts that cross the mind. Breathe. Always free to adjust. Always free to shift. Drawing in one more full inhale. Releasing the complete exhale. And if the chin fell towards the right shoulder, allowing the chin to come back center as we begin to release ourselves from this pose. Starting with the legs, releasing the right foot from behind the left and planting the right foot once again. Then pressing into the left foot to roll onto the right hip so the left hand can sneak out from behind the lower back and allow it to rest in stillness for just a few moments. Allowing the arm to release alongside the body. Noticing any hot or cold sensations, anything dull or achy. Perhaps the hand feels a little cold as it felt warm behind the back. Perhaps it fell asleep a little bit. But allowing these sensations to come and just simply naming and noticing them, and then letting them drift away. As those sensations subside, allowing some movement to come, perhaps to the arms, perhaps to the hips, anything that feels appropriate here before we move into a twist to the other side. So feeling free, if that means shifting and coming into a child's pose, if that's coming into downward facing dog or any other shape, that's okay. Find what works for you, what releases the pose from your body. And as you're ready, after exploring different shapes, different releasing poses, coming back to our reclined position with the feet planted. This time leaving the left foot planted, we'll lift the right, crossing the right leg over the left, tight at the knees. And again, you can adjust into the leg shape of your choice if you have something that works better in your body, if you have certain challenges in your body, or just knowing that your body receives the twist in a different shape. Allowing the arms to extend out to the side, straight out from the shoulders. Draw in a full inhale. Exhale, release the knees to the left. And again, you can always have a pillow or a blanket or a block underneath the knees. Encouraging that right shoulder to soften towards the mat as the right hip lifts. The chin can also fall the opposite direction of the knees if that would feel good in your body. As we continue to keep the breath deep within the body, notice how the breath has to change its position, its movements through this twisted shape. Notice where tension builds. And can the breath soften the tension that arises? Allowing the mind to return to the breath anytime the mind begins to wander. Enjoying one more full round of breath in this shape. The following inhale, bringing us back center. Uncrossing the knees, planting the feet, and once again, moving the body in a way that releases that twisted shape. Perhaps it's back into that little ball shape, perhaps finding a happy baby in these shapes, finding maybe a side to side movement to give a gentle massage to the lower back. As these movements feel complete, allowing yourself to come up to a seated position. Allowing the breaths here to recenter the mind, the body. As you feel ready, sweeping the legs behind and making your way all the way down onto the belly. Legs long. The hands can stack one atop the other, creating a pillow for either the forehead or taking the cheek to one side or the other. We'll begin building half frog. And in building half frog, the leg will stay down towards the floor, but we'll begin to bend through the right knee. And we'll begin to draw the right knee towards the right elbow. For those that are very familiar with frog and would feel more comfortable moving into full frog, feel free to make your way there with both knees bent in this shape. But if that's not appropriate for your body, enjoying this time in half frog. If you find that your foot is tender to the floor, feeling free to bring a blanket underneath the foot. And the knee does not need to come so close to the elbow. There's really no intended point at which it's perfect. It's how does it feel in the front of that right hip? But softening the body, allowing gravity to help soften and come into the hip joint here. Noticing how when we're on our belly, how the breath moves the body. The inhale drawing us away from the mat. The exhale lowering the body back towards the mat. Feeling free to adjust the leg as you need as we settle into one more minute in this pose. Notice that hip So lift it really high and feel free to soften the knee to allow the front of the hips to receive this pose. Drawing in a full inhale. Exhale, release the leg back long on the mat. Finding any movement through the legs that you need before we move to the other side. And as you're ready, inhale to begin to bend through that left knee, drawing the left knee up towards the left elbow. If your hands found a cheek, perhaps switching sides, keeping sort of a symmetry to the hold on the neck. If you're in full frog, holding on as long as you would like, but feeling free to release at any time now that we're holding the other side. At any time you're ready to release, feeling free to do so and finding poses that help release yourself from full frog. Being kind and gentle with the body upon that release. Noticing for those in half frog how this feels compared to the other side, and not in a way to bring judgment, simply awareness. There's no change, there's no fix. But how does it feel, and how can you make this side feel complete into the pose? Anytime that your mind wanders far from the body, come back to the breath and the awareness of the movement of the body against the mat with the breath. As we come into the last few breaths of holding half frog, notice any adjustments you would like to make. If you'd like to try a little bit deeper, or if you need to begin to release early. Then drawing a full inhale. Exhale, go ahead and release the left leg long on the mat. Feeling free to move through the hips, perhaps bending through the knees, toes towards the ceiling. Finding a windshield wiper type movement. Perhaps circles. Allowing the legs to settle back to the mat as they're ready. Allowing them to settle into their natural shape where it feels appropriate in the body. No intention to bring them wide or narrow. And then the next inhale, we'll begin to lift the chin, the shoulders, the heart, as the shoulders come underneath, the elbows come underneath the shoulders. The palms down towards the mat, fingers wide. Building into Sphinx pose. If you come into Sphinx pose and you begin to notice that the lower back is really tender here, it's not receiving this back bend. If it's too intense, consider either taking the legs wider on the mat. If it's still too intense, perhaps walk the hands forward, taking the elbows forward of the shoulders and lowering the back bend. For those that Sphinx is not quite enough, feel free to take the hands and sort of tilt them to the outside of the mat and straighten through the arms, coming into seal pose. In whichever of these back bends that you choose, the back bends that work for your body, we want to begin to soften into the ones that you choose, softening the face, the shoulders. If you're in Sphinx as opposed to seal, allowing the belly to begin to sink towards the mat. Noticing how the lower body, the bum, the thighs, the legs, will all try to tighten to protect the lower back, and encouraging softness into the lower body. With each breath, noticing what shows up and encouraging the lower body to let the lower back enjoy this pose. Continually scanning through the body, from the forehead and the eyes, the jaw, the neck and shoulders, the upper back, all the way through the lower back, the hips, all the way through the body, reminding softness. If you find that your body is holding on to tension, consider walking the hands forward and lowering the back bend. Honoring your body where it is today, not your pose that you held yesterday or the one that you will hold tomorrow, but honoring your body where it is. Releasing the expectation. Allowing the breath to stay deep in the belly, nice and soft. Allowing the eyes to travel towards the mat. They can also travel to the hands and beyond the hands, as long as they stay soft The eyelids can lower, they can close fully here. Drawing in a full inhale. The next exhale will begin to release us out of this back bend, allowing the belly, the heart, the shoulders to return back towards the mat. Lengthening the spine, releasing the back bend. Enjoying moments of stillness. Option to find movement in the legs, bending through the knees once again if that feels appropriate. As you're ready, drawing the hands underneath the shoulders, lifting up through tabletop. The feet come together, the knees wide, pressing back into child's pose. Breathe. Enjoying a few breaths here in child's pose before we begin to make our way to a gentle shavasana. Feeling free to move through the wrists, the neck, any movements. If child's pose is not right for you, feel free to find the pose that is, the shape, the movement, yoga or not. As you're ready, we'll gently begin to make our way down onto our backs. Feeling free to prop the body in any way that you need, whether a bolster or a pillow underneath the knees might feel good. A blanket over the body for warmth or weight. But allowing the body to settle into the shape that invites stillness and ease. Allowing the eyes to soften as the eyelids lower, perhaps close fully. Allowing the mind to leave the awareness of the body, the mat, the room. And as the awareness of the stilling of the body begins to drift, we return to our breath. as the breath begins to deepen, allowing each inhale to bring fresh air into the body, creating small movements in the toes, small movements in the fingers. Each breath gently drawing the body away from the stillness of Shavasana. As these movements begin to shift and change, allowing them to transition you onto your right side. The breaths in this shape, allowing the mind to return to the awareness of the room, the mat, the body. Gently drawing yourself up to a comfortable seat as you're ready. Eyes remain soft behind lowered or closed eyelids. The mind still, the body calm. With palms comfortably in the lap or drawn together at heart center. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. In gratitude for our time together today, namaste.
Online at soulyoga.org for details on a private session or public class. Namaste.